Hi there, it's Larry Potsabinski. Let me try to make myself happy by telling you a story, an involved story, a wild story. Most people will find it hard to believe, but it deals with my lifetime and what I've been through in my lifetime and what life experience has taught me. It begins in Tampa, where I went to high school and college for a few years, and I studied philosophy and religion, some classes, and that was the third year of college studies, and there was a half a year high school philosophy class they gave us too. So I was steeped in that, stewed in that, educated basis for my mind to progress forward in life from a young age of 18, 17, 19, 20, studying that stuff, So that was in the 1970s in Tampa, and then I've said in other videos my middle name can be controversial. My middle initial is C for controversial, and this is one of those times. If I tell a story the right way, I don't know if I'll publish this video or not, because people will think this. Well, so anyways, this goes back to after I got well on schizophrenia. It was over 30 years ago now, earlier this year. And I have an even clearer mind on the update on the pain clinic. For those of you who have been watching my medical videos, before that, my middle name was controversial for C for controversial. This is where I'm going with this video. But the pain clinic, they canceled on me, so I had to wait 3 more weeks to see the nurse practitioner. She said trigger point injections. So set me up for 3 more weeks from now, 2 more weeks from now, or whatever. 3 more weeks from now, I think, before I get the pain trigger point injection in my back. I believe it would help with the pain. I was in too much pain to do this tonight, but I took something. I had something I could take. But anyways, so when I got well with the schizophrenia, in the following years, internet was invented. Like about 5 years later. No, it was 3 years later. 3.5 years later, internet with 56K dial-up, where it took 20 to 30 minutes for the page to come in. Was for a few years. In 2001, Windows XP, it was DSL or high-speed pages come in faster. So I was able to research to my heart's content, being the intellectual, that I am. I mean, up the stairs. So, I had my initial. I studied different things. Schizophrenia to begin with, and the first place was foremost on my mind how to understand the illness and what it was, and is, and will do to you if you don't take the right medication. But for you, the effective medication, I always call it effective, quotes medication, or it's not worth taking if it's going to cause side effects and not have any positive benefit for the person. It's just torture, side effects. But as far as the schizophrenia goes, but that's no sign of that. Well, absolutely no sign of that in my life today, and especially on the Vraylar from the Abilify, which ruined my back. The Abilify, so the pain clinic canceled me, and the pain injections are like April 7th, and this is March 21st yet. I had to look at the time, not past midnight, but anyways, where was I? One of my curiosities early on, when I could study freely on Google Scholar searches, where I looked for my stuff, but I really want to dig into something, keywords like. This goes back to like meditation in the 1980s. I studied philosophy in the 70s, and then in the 80s I studied more meditation, Buddhist Tantrayana, and different forms of Buddhism and meditational states and hatha yoga and the raising of the kundalini energy and the chakras or whatever you want to call them. Meditational stuff from Eastern religion, but there's also religion books. I didn't buy any, but I saw them for sale, and the books in print in the library at one time when you had to shop. There was no internet, but called Christian Buddhism. So there's such a thing as that. There's officially over 4,000 religions in the world today, recognized in the philosophy departments in universities around the world. So, so anyways, one thing I've had curiosity about though, from the schizophrenic experience, where you see things there that aren't there. That you're talking, the threshold is you hear things like people talking, and then when it gets really severe, like I had it, you actually see the people standing there talking to you, or you see them somehow on the other end of a video bug monitor, and looking at the screen, watching you, and you're reading their mind and talking to them, and there's nobody there. It's all insane. That's what schizophrenia does to you. Paranoid type, when it manifests that way. I'm not that type now, so I'm not in danger. In 30 years, I've been no problem. But I do have some. I've studied philosophy all my life. Lifelong philosophy, amateur philosopher, I guess you might call me. But heavy duty amateur philosopher. But anyways, one thing I was curious about for the schizophrenic experience resembled remote view, what they call remote viewing. There was lots of websites where you could look at. They tell you how to remote view. I didn't watch any of those. I researched on Google Scholar Search, CIA psychic unit, and I found a paper by a woman, PhD, on the UCLA education.edu official UCLA University website. She published this paper and said she was the director of the CIA psychic unit for 12 years, and they proved that psychic remote viewing is possible. That takes a good, in their center to do that, viewer to see things far away and know what's going on, and somewhere else, and when they meditate, like states they get into, and other times they require somebody on the ground at the site presence where they want us transmitting back to the viewer home base to see it themselves and transmit psychically. So they proved this exists, and then one year later, or many years later, some years ago now, a few years ago, several years ago now, I guess, there was one of the drivers who drives me to my medical appointments was an older retired Vietnam veteran, and we were talking on the way out to the medical appointment, and he said, he knew about my condition from town and how I talked about things about the government and that were hallucinations about replicated UFO technology and things like that being used on me, but hallucinations, they don't exist. But I don't believe, but they do. I don't believe they do exist. It was all psychosis, schizophrenia. So I have a clear mind on that now. And the issue is closed. That there was any truth to that story in my book. That was about the conspiracies, the shit that went through my mind. I thought it was. But I did contact the government, though, and on page 167 and 66 and 167 in my book, In the Grip of Paranoid Schizophrenia, is UFO diagrams. I challenge you to look at those pages, 166 and 167, and in the third edition of In the Grip of Paranoid Schizophrenia. Tell me that didn't freak the CIA out when I saw it about UFO technology, schematic diagrams, how they work. The theory, interventional, the operational theory of UFO theory. So I come up with some bizarre stuff when I was psychotic that I got their attention, and they were calling me, and but that had nothing to do with it. This has nothing to do with that time in my life. But so the dude told me, he said about the remote viewing. He said we were talking, and he said there was a famous guy, and I looked this up, and it's true. His name was McDonough, and he was an infantryman in the United States military who got a concussion, and head concussion from a grenade going off near his head, and so he was in a hospital bed, and recuperating, and he opened his eyes and told the doctor who was doing rounds. He said, Doc, I don't know what to do here. What to think. I mean, he said, when I'm here, I'm on the board. I'm with you. Everything's intact and normal. But when I close my eyes, it's like I can see somebody. I'm looking somewhere else. So the doctor said I can send you to do one of two things. I can send you to the psychiatrist for schizophrenia drug treatment, or I can send you to the CIA psychic unit to see if you qualify for use there. Service there. So he chose the psychic unit, and they tested him, they gave him coordinates in Side Russia and said, well, draw what you think is on there. And he did his mojo, whatever his thing was, meditative thing was, and he drew like a steam shovel. And that was exactly what they said. That was exactly what is at that location. So they knew from U-2 spy planes, So this is some years ago, I guess. I'm not sure the years of this. CIA psychic unit was supposed to be moved to the Defense Department Intelligence in 1992, I believe. I read called under the name Stargate. I forget the name of under the CIA. It was called something else, and I can't find it on the list today. So history rewrites itself sometimes too. Things erase. But but so anyway, the dude said, so the guy was proven to be useful to the CIA psychic unit. So they put him to a test. Then one time they were puzzled because they saw YouTube spy plane footage of of a warehouse like building, huge building 5 miles from the sea inside Russia, and they asked McDonough, "What do you think they're doing in there?" And so he did his meditative thing, and he come back to them and said they're building the world's biggest nuclear submarine, and they all laughed at him. He was a laughing stock because they thought it was impossible. It's 5 miles from the sea, But then on YouTube spy plane footage, sure enough, afterwards, sometime they saw rolling on flatbed railroad cars the world's biggest nuclear submarine to the sea, and he was an instant overnight success, hit, big, big, big name for himself, and classified or unclassified or whatever it's written about. You can research it, But so anyway, so that was proven that remote viewing is possible, to do these kind of things. So another point about this is that this ties into like my own meditative states, which there are times when I've talked about other meditative states I've attained too, like in my sleep when I'm deeper than my dreams and I'm in my core of my being and I can realize I'm asleep in bed and alone and reality is around. I'm in touch with reality, but I'm asleep. But I'm aware in my sleep and I'm thinking in my sleep and my core, but deep. I see my dreams ahead of me, in front of me. I'm behind my dreams and my core, my being. I've attained that in my sleep a few times over the last few decades. But a couple decades or so, 2.5 or 3. But anyways, so meditative states are not unusual for me. So when I find myself some days, it's like it has its own biorhythm or diurnal cycle to it. I mean, the highs when it's active and the lows when it's not active. And I'm in a low where it's not active right now, but there are days when I sit in my chair in the afternoon, sun shining, and I'll close my eyes, listen to music or whatever. The synthesizer's just making sequencing, oscillating, making sounds, strange, bizarre sounds. Anybody else to consider it, but it's like my wind box at somebody's office, so nobody can hear you talk. I mean, I can hear myself think that better that way, but. But I close my eyes and I see. It's like I'm looking at someplace else, So, and I used to do this years ago before I was put on alprazolam, which is a sedative, and my brain didn't work the same way anymore after that. But then decades later, it comes back, and I can sit there and it's like I'm looking somewhere else. Where I don't know. I can't remember. But it just at the time I open my eyes and the reality's all right there. There's no break. There's no voices, no audio to like schizophrenia. No relation. No connection to relationship to schizophrenia. I've been through both. So I see places and I don't call anybody about it and tell anybody about it. But that's why I'm making this public now, because it gets back to the keyboards you see me around in here I play on sometimes, but my nervous system is damaged, my fingers are damaged from the antipsychotic drugs to do it the right way, way I be really proficient at it. So I just play around with them, get creative sometimes, and do some. I got some cool stuff. I want to burn some more discs for new menu disc, type menu on the disc. But some of the better stuff I done. But I emailed a friend the MP3 versions. But so anyways, so this one keyboard player, he was famous from the 1970s. One of the top two I read, depending where you read, the keyboard electronic musicians of the 1970s. And I'll tell you who he is later on, but after a while here. But he once said in an interview that his music teacher, I read he took piano lessons since he was a young child, and he wanted to be a classical pianist in an orchestra. But then he found out that he didn't make any money doing that, so he turned to rock and roll, and electronic synthesizers were coming in at the time. So he picked up on those. He was a famous electronic musician for his electronics. But there were two of them at the time who collaborated and wanted to do an album together, and it never happened, though. But I'll mention both of them. But so anyway, this one dude said in an interview, I don't know what year the interview was from, I watched it several years ago, and he said that his piano teaching guru or keyboard teaching guru or teacher or instructor or whatever told him to close your eyes and see the notes, know where the notes are, and see them with your eyes closed. And so that's like remote viewing. I'm saying he didn't call it that though, but I'm thinking that's what he's doing. So he's remote viewing. He's seen the notes where he's putting his fingers before they even hit the keyboard. He sees where their hands are going on the keyboard. So he plays so much music over his whole lifetime. He must be 70 years. I'm near 80 years old now. But anyways, he said that to see it with your eyes closed. And I'm saying his name was Rick Wakeman. He played with Yes and many other band on tracks. He did Space Oddity by David Bowie. Did keyboards on it. He popped in here and there and did pieces on Black Sabbath music and that various all over the place. He played music, his own music too. And I knew him from 1974 in sophomore in high school from his epic album Journey to the Center of the Earth with a symphony orchestra. I love it. The album. I just draw on my notebook in class, and I'll pay attention, and when they call me, I know the answer. But from the album lyrics, a forest of mushrooms and giant trees that were looked at from the mosses from the Silurian epoch, and Journey to the Center of the Earth, the original version from 1974 by Rick Wakeman. That'll start you out. But anyway, so the other keyboard famous he collaborated with was Keith Emerson, who sadly committed suicide in 2016, I think it was, because he had carpal tunnel syndrome and couldn't play anymore, which is kind of dumb, if you ask me. But anyways, so I was going to say the point of this was I remote view. So I see, like, when I sit in my chair and just close my eyes, sometimes I just drift off into music and see like I'm looking at someplace else. But I'm back to reality, so there's no break of reality. It's just like a dream world, I mean, visionary world, inner visionary world or something, International Federation for Internal Freedom, IFIF, started by Timothy Leary in the 1960s. International Federation for Internal Freedom, to think what you want and see what you want inside yourself. So I've meditated on that over the decades of my life since studying philosophy. So this takes me to the remote viewing now, and so the point I was going to make was that on my birthday the other day, I was having my morning hot tea, and I was sitting in my corner on my meditation pillow, and I was sitting cross-legged on the pillow with my elbows on my knees, and I was looking down and my eyes closed, and I could see my keyboards in front of me, and I could see my hands playing the right rhythm and basically where the tones would be for the right Emerson, Lake and Palmer song I was thinking of, and I could see myself playing another one, but I couldn't see the actual keys on the keyboard though. I could see my arms going down, remote viewing with my eyes closed, and also I knew this was happening too because I well, this is another part of the story in a moment, but so anyway, I could see my arms moving down, but I don't know where all the chords are on the keyboard. There's so many of them, you know. So I don't see the actual keys on the keyboard. I just saw my hands playing the right rhythm and tone, basic variation where on the keyboard where the sound would be, tone pitch would be, you know, for the song I was thinking of. Seeing remote viewing of myself playing it on the keyboard, or my arms going down, the right rhythm and tempo and everything, you know. So it was a moving experience, slightly to me. My head, I get into things like that, deeper experiences, you know. So, but because the other reason I remember you, it was in a cycle last week. I think it ended last week ago, but it hasn't been out for over a week now. But I was in the taking a shower on the shower seat because fall hazard in the shower. My homemade has to be here. I need her sometimes. One time I slid backwards on the chair, fell backwards. I caught myself, but I didn't fall. But it was a slip considered. But so I don't take a shower by myself without somebody here. And I trust her. She's trusted. She's cool, good, good to me. Really good to me. This aid, like some of them have been. But for my back condition, because of the antipsychotic drugs is the whole problem there, you know. So that's back to that story. But to this story, when I sit in the shower stool, I close my eyes when I'm under the water because I don't know how to swim, and I have to close my eyes, and I was moving my body and washing my legs and sitting on the chair and washing my toes and between my toes and everything, and I can see myself now, even my foot holding up there. A little glimpse of like a goldish light on a dimmer goldish light of another fourth dimensional astral plane, if you will, or spirit of God, for other people might consider it, uh, spiritual visionary powers. You know, I mean, so based on a lifetime of studying philosophy and religion and meditative experiences. So that's all it is. So it's like it comes in cycles, and it peaks for a while, and then it goes away for a while, and then it's not been happening long, but I have a clearer mind on the Vraylar instead of the Abilify, so it's easier to do. Have that happen when it does happen. Just enjoy it momentarily and open my eyes, and it goes away anytime I open my eyes. So what's the harm in that? I just wanted to blow your mind with this story. This is getting longer than I want it to be, but this is what I mean. My middle initial C for controversial. So dig on this and see what you think about this. You still think I'm not crazy? I don't think I am. I know I'm not. I know what crazy is. Read my book. I documented it for you. In the Grip of Paranoid Schizophrenia, 3rd edition. Available where you buy finer books. And thank you for your interest. And I wonder what anybody will think of this now. Have a nice day or night.